Hey, and thank you so much for watching or listening to Urbanistica podcast. Today it's going to be really amazing. We have one more great episode from the Placemaking Europe, and I have the pleasure to welcome you, Ramon, to Urbanistica podcast. Hey, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Mustafa. I'm really happy to be here with you.
Thank you for giving your time to record this episode, and I'm so happy finally you're here.
Yeah, and I'm the last, but yeah, very lucky to be here. Also, to have had the pleasure to listening to the other episodes that actually have been really, really beautiful as well to learn a bit more about my colleagues. No, so you got into some
Exactly.
personal details that I didn't know from some of my colleagues. So it was very interesting to listen to
Yeah,
your episodes.
yeah. It was also for me very interesting to do the interview, to explore more about what they do, and to all the listeners, Ramon and Marta were planning all these sessions. So I'm really happy that finally I got Ramon to the podcast. So Ramon, you gonna be our storyteller for this episode.
Mhm.
Everyone wants to know about you. So tell us about yourself. How would you like to introduce yourself, and what are you passionate about?
I'd say like I'm mostly passionate about people and places. So yeah, I think every in every place where there is a decent amount of people and enough diversity of things happening, there is something to get passionate about. No, so you like sometimes there are these kind of discussions that which is your favorite place, which is your favorite city, and so on. And with my experience, I didn't find a place yet that had not enough reasons to make me passionate about it. And obviously, that's also linked to things to improve and so on. No, I'm not saying that everything is perfect at all, which is not. But like when there is cities, when there is places, when there is density, and when there's diversity, for sure there is a reason to get passionate about.
Yeah. And tell us about Ramon, the guy with a passion for cities, for people. Tell us about you. Who's Ramon?
Yeah, I'm actually I'm talking to you from Valencia, so I'm a Southern European. I consider myself a Mediterranean, so I think it's something that shapes my identity a lot. Not only because I think the sea is a kind of fundamental element, no, in terms of feeling and belonging, but also I feel really, really connected to this idea of the Mediterranean from North Africa to like the south of Europe and so on. It's a strong connection and the way of being, music, tastes, architecture. So I think that is something there. So I'd say like I'm from Valencia, Mediterranean. I'm also European, so I really believe in this crazy idea of Europe that if it's based on something is probably it's based around public space. So it's based on a way of being together, which is beautiful at the same time. And I'm an economist by training, but also an urbanist by profession. And I'm also a musician. I'm a writer, but and mostly I like to listen, to observe. I don't know, and to talk to different people.
That's lovely. So tell us, you were born in Valencia and you grew up in the same city?
I'm raised and born in Valencia, like from a family in Valencia, so very anchored and root, and I think also that influenced my profession later on. But
Hmm.
also I've been lucky to have a fortunate combination, and I think it's very lucky to have that because I had the chance to combine being very anchored, which means very active in my community, and at the same time the chance to be involved internationally in different contexts.
Mm.
So even though I grew up and I did my bachelor's in Valencia, I had the chance to do my master's in the Netherlands, and after that, I've been like working internationally quite a lot. But I think this combination of having kind of my head in the world and my feet deeply anchored in the earth that made me grow up. I think I don't know. It's something cool.
Yeah.
Even though anchorage can be constructed as well, and I tend to love and become like that would be for another discussion. But it's just it made me think that now that I'm saying that in this particular case it's very explicit, no? But somehow it's relatively easy to feel that you belong into a place, even though it's very complex to feel that you'll belong to a nation that is not yours. But it's easy to belong to a city that is not yours. and that's also I don't know. It's very. It's an asset, no, for the kind of work that we do.
Yeah, it's also very interesting reflection you do about your journey. But tell me, what did you study in your bachelor and then in the master? Because you mentioned you're economist and so on. I'm interested now to know what did you study?
Yeah, I did economics, so pure economics, neoclassical economics, basically. So the kind of mainstream economics that it's been challenged lately, luckily enough. And then I got more and more interested in non-mainstream economics, and I end up at specializing somehow in urban economics, and also that's because of a combination of intuition and randomness. And the randomness was that I was lucky enough to end up doing urban economics as a course, and the lecture was great.
Wow.
So it was fantastic, no? And he was Josep Sorribes, a guy that I'm still working with. So he was kind of my mentor, no, in all of this. And he used to be the chief of cabinet of the mayor of Valencia during the 80s, probably the best mayor that we have had in the history of Valencia. And also I studied in a very specific moment, no, where I just a lot of people wasn't very happy about the development of the city, because like we had a, let's say, mayor for more than 20 years with a very kind of neoliberal orientation, a bunch of public investment towards creating growth in real estate, tourism, so on, and didn't work very well. So I had a lecturer that suddenly he was experienced in something that I was thinking that was much better.
Ah,
And then I had it. So it was not only that he was very good in urban economics, but he could explain
yeah.
on by his own experience how the city was, what would like, yeah, the city policies and so on. And he knew the city very well. He knows the city very well, no?
Mm,
And then it was just wow, I like that. And by intuition, I knew already that I didn't want to do like some kind of economics, like silos economics, no? There is
mm.
a lot of part of economics. There are others that are not, like there is like labor economics or maybe international economics and so on, that they have to merge with other professionals. And that's like I knew that I wanted that. I didn't want to be only surrounded by economics. And then I found this lecturer, and I thought, wow, that's great, cities,
It's
no?
it's
And
it's
then
a
went
it's a
Africa.
life changing
Exactly.
lecture.
And this guy just at the end of the course, like he called me to his office and he said, "Why don't you work with me a bit?" And I said, "Okay, why not?" And I started working with him as a research assistant and doing different projects, and it was fantastic. And because of that, yeah, I decided to specialize a bit, but without going that far away from economics.
Yeah.
So I did my master's in economics and geography at Utrecht University.
That's lovely. You know, to be honest, I thought you're like an urban planner or something related to architecture and placemaking. You're
No,
really passionate about
no, I'm actually a
placemaking.
proud economist as well. Is I think there are some tools that even I like to challenge mainstream economics. I think that there are some tools that are interesting, and I think we are economists are good allies in placemaking and urban development in general. But at the same time, it's true that professionally, I work. I guess my work it's more like the work of an urbanist, no? Similar like what Levente
Yeah,
was
yeah,
explaining the other
exactly,
day, no?
exactly. So,
Have a
but
similar
Ramon, tell
trajectory.
me in this journey,
Mm.
when did your story with placemaking start?
Actually, as many colleagues in the network, I was involved in placemaking without calling it placemaking. And obviously, in intellectual terms, I was influenced by some of the influence that's already influenced the placemaking movement in America, especially Jane Jacobs, which has been fundamental for my intellectual growth, not only because her knowledge of cities in the life and death, but especially about her knowledge in economics. I think like her two books on economics are something that everyone has to read. They're very, very good, no? So also so I got this. I read Death and Life, but then I read The Economy of Cities and Cities: The Wealth of Nations, and it was just this click, no? So
Mm,
understanding the mistakes, something it is the economy of cities. It's a bit similar to what it is the Donut economics today. No, so like the starting of the book, it's a deep criticism of what didn't work in economics. So Jane Jacobs did the same in the 60s, very good quality. So that's obviously one of the, like the placemaking movement is coming from there. So intellectually there is one connection, but then there is other connection that is much more individual, I guess, or practical. And I think it's shared by some of the colleagues of the network, especially in Southern Europe. So basically what would happen is just, I'd say like I'm this kind of millennials, the generation of two crises. So I started to work during this terrible financial crisis especially in Southern Europe. And we saw that planning wasn't working and urban policy weren't working at all. So it's starting from a reaction from activism, no? So we started to do kind of bottom-up projects. We were involved in activism and resistance. We start to activate it places and so on, and so on. And we realized this power that community has to kind of fill the gaps that the government was not filling at a certain point. So I do think both in Eastern and Southern Europe, placemaking movement, it's really rooted on politics, and also it develops as a reaction to a planning system and a set of urban policies that is not working at all. And also that's an asset somehow. So somehow like this connection for both, on the one hand, more intellectual and the second hand, more practical. And then after many years, we realized that this thing had no name, no? It was just activist, I don't know, bottom-up urbanism, tactical urbanism, and so on. But we knew that there was something there on the connection between community, amateur, generalists, architects, planners, and so on. And yeah, and then at a certain point, we realized that that was in the USA called placemaking. And there were some really, really, really cool people involved on that. And we wanted to learn from them. Yeah, I'm here. I am.
Nice. But
But
tell me, like, Placemaking Europe, how did you meet this network? Like, your story with this specific network started.
yeah. And actually, like, I think we'll talk later about that, no? But I was like, after all the years of activism and a change of government in my city, had the lucky to be appointed the chief strategy officer at the waterfront redevelopment. That was one of the main symbols of this kind of urbanism that didn't like. And when I was faced with this particular challenge, also with the bag full, all like will need experience loaded by this activism background, no? So I'd say, okay, how can we develop a large scale place with the same principles of this community urbanism that I was used to do? And obviously, in the first check of reference, then PPS came, no Project for Public Space, that at that moment they were already doing an amazing work about innovation districts and placemaking, where they know cultural transformative placemaking and so on. And that was one thing, no? Because on the past I've been involved with many of the members of Placemaking Europe. I knew Jeroen, I knew who Charlotte was, I knew Levette and so on, but we didn't call it placemaking yet. So what happened is just, I think this is a quite a beautiful story actually, because I remember I was appointed at my work in May 1st of May 2016, and just 1 year later we drafted something that was more or less a placemaking strategy for developing the waterfront in Valencia, La Marina de Valencia. And I gave my parents as a present a trip to New York, because it was the first time for them to fly overseas away from Europe. And we were in New York, like very happy as a family. And I thought, wow, I would love to meet these PPS guys. And in a really humble way, I dropped an email to Ethan. I asked if he could meet, and he said yes. And we went to a Polish restaurant to have lunch. And I remember I was just even a bit nervous. And I brought him a brochure about the strategy that I draft, and I was telling him, it was in Spanish, not even translated to English, and I was saying, look, here it says that, like, in the strategy we are mentioning some reference, and there is this work of Project for Public Space that set up like 9 steps to create a great waterfront, and we are using that. And I had that intuition, and I didn't know that was going to work well, but it worked much better than I ever expected. And a year and a half later, I was hosting Placemaking Week Europe
That's
in
crazy, no?
waterfront in Valencia. I was working with Fred Ken in this incredible exhibition of the social life of great waterfronts, and suddenly and surprisingly, the La Marina de Valencia, Valencia's waterfront, suddenly became or was considered one of the best examples of placemaking in Europe, no? And that only happened in a couple of years, which also shows how powerful those tools and ideas are, if the conditions, if there are the right conditions. And in between, of course, a lot of things happened, because after that meeting with Ethan told me, why don't you come to Placemaking Week Europe Amsterdam? And I just decided to go, and I present the idea of the strategy, and I met the guys because I knew Levente and others. We got the discussion, and actually was there in the first kind of workshop when we were considering about setting up an organization. But I think that, yeah, this lunch with Ethan was certainly fundamental.
That's so crazy story. And also I think it's because of your passion, you know, like you were brave enough to text or to email Ethan. You were not afraid, what will he say? No, maybe it's not time, let me enjoy the time with family. It's passion, right?
Yeah, also passion. I think it's becoming a grown up. It's just it's evolving oneself, because I think when there is no reason to be to be shy on this. It's
Just do it.
just do it.
Yeah.
And there is one thing that I know, especially in this field, and it's just the whole field of urban development or urban planning or whatever. People is generally quite passionate. What passionate, at least they like what they do, and they generally really keen to listen and to share, and that's beautiful. And it happened to me. I don't know, there are a lot of great guys or great persons, no, people that has been a reference for me, like the professor that I was mentioning. And I was having a talk before with another professor of geography that's one of the best of Spain, Joan Romero, that now is a friend. It happened with Charles Langley as well, that after admiring him quite a lot, I'm working quite close to him in some projects. And that's beautiful, no? And because they are really, it's surprising sometimes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they are willing to share. And I'm really trying to do the same as well. So now that every time that a student or someone uh, wants to have a chat, I'll try to make it, because I learn a lot from that as well.
I totally agree with your mindset that we should really like share as well, especially like now you mentioned students. It's the same for me, you know. Many students write in LinkedIn, okay, how can I do this? How can I do that? I mean,
Mhm.
it's really one of our responsibilities to share the knowledge and give the hand to
Yeah.
the future generation. So
And
I'm
it's a
happy
lot
that
of fun doing that. It's a lot of fun. It's not a
it's
burden.
fun. Exactly. It's not, it's, yes, if you look at it, it's like time consuming, but on the other hand, you're like, how to say, you're building the future as well, and you're sharing and learning as and open new possibilities. Ramon, you're now one of the directors for the placemaking, but before we talk about this, let me just go back in time. You're the co-founder of Urbigo.
Mhm.
Tell me more about it.
Yeah, Urbego, it was it has a lot of similar elements to Placemaking Europe. We were much younger at that point, but Urbego was actually an international platform for young planning professionals. And also, it was founded in a particular moment as well. So actually, like, I'm a co-founder of Urbego. The main initiator is my friend Julia Machi, and she's one of the best urban professionals that I know. She's very smart. She's very bright. You should interview her, by the way.
Sure.
She's now in charge of the gender program at Cities Alliance, like World Bank program, and doing very interesting projects. But Julia and I, together with more people, Simona from Romania living in London, Farah from Lebanon living in Italy, Filipa from Serbia. So like not like Southern Eastern European nations, like mostly, and we were basically identifying like also a lot of females in the woman in the initiator group were identifying several things. General Crazy of Planning Thinking. At that moment, I'm thinking that was funded in 2012, if I'm not wrong, or 2011. Still economic crisis, deep crisis on urban planning thinking, silos, old. So it was we realized that we need to raise a voice for women from Southern Europeans, from other disciplines, or from young people especially, trying to bring different and new tools, more bottom up, more contextualized, more responsible, more sustainable, to the table, no? And actually, like we really we identified that need, and we started to work together. And we were younger, and probably we commit some mistakes, but it was beautiful. It was beautiful, to the point that I remember that Julia and I had the chance to share the stage with Peter Hall in one of his last appearance in the International Federation of Housing and Planning Centenary Congress in University College London. And that was super beautiful. Like both of us, young, as I said, Southern European, because I think it's interesting. Also Mediterranean, interesting connection, no? Because it was the
Yes.
Balkan, Italy,
Yeah.
it was Lebanon. But we were not the usual suspects, you know. We were not from Germany, from the Netherlands, UK, and we were not an upper 50 years old white guy. That was a different combination of people, and that was very, very powerful. And from that, everyone is like doing quite well in their own professions and involved in their own work, and we couldn't manage to keep the network working because we start to do other things. But I think it was a very beautiful experience.
Mm-hmm. And lately you were appointed as a chief for the strategy officer for of La Marina de Valencia. This is like one of the most successful story in your life so far. So tell me more about what is this project, because I hear a lot about it, I read a lot about it. It's very, how to say, a successful project. Tell me more about it.
So basically, La Marina de Valencia is the old harbor of Valencia, so the area of the public side of the port, basically. So it's a place of port-city interaction. Also, it was considered a symbol in the city because it was a failed urban development project, but a big failure because it was developed investing a big amount of money, in this case, €1 billion, basically, to transform the old harbor, to host marinas, and to host big events like Formula One, like America's Cup of Sailing, and with a strategy that was based in tourism and services and so on, and not really considering the needs of the neighborhoods and the city. And that totally failed, not only in human terms and social terms, but also especially in financial terms. So that institution got totally bankrupt. And as I said, it was not only that it was, yeah, it was a bit far away from the city, obviously, because it's 6 kilometers far away from the city. But also what was more important is the distance was emotional. People were considering that this place was designed for them. They had nothing to do there. It was perceived to be very exclusive, even for some people, a symbol of mismanagement and poor urban policy. And in 2015, after almost 25 years of the same mayor, like a right-wing mayor, the new progressive mayor, which is back, like supported by different sort of urban coalitions from LGBTQ movement to bike activists to environmentalists and so on, wants the election, and they want to do something different. And at that point, I always tell the story because it's quite funny, because I was at Australia doing a project in Sydney by that moment, and I got a call from the mayor at 4 a.m. and I was just, wow, this is the mayor really calling me. And he was, and he said, yeah, like, why don't you do work, help us to do this waterfront development or to do something over there? And it was not a clear kind of direction. It was not a clear request from the municipality at that point. They just wanted to just do it differently. Obviously, like the progressive claim were just to manage the resources better, to be more transparent, and to improve public spaces. But then we start to develop a strategy, understanding as well that the development on this place could solve many issues that the city needed. So we combined a strategy that combined the action with the strategy. So it was very, very important to act fast. That's why placemaking and tactical urbanism and so on. And at the same time, combining economic uses that could give us money to reinvest with public uses. That was the most important thing to do. So we ended up, and it worked great. So after, I don't know, it's just after 3 years, we already increased revenues by 70%, became the second most visited public space in town. But especially, it is now a loved place. And like you can check a lot of numbers and so on, but what really demonstrate that now this place belongs to the city finally has been COVID. because during COVID, there are no tourists. So the model before that was totally focused on tourists would have been, I don't know, at that like nobody would have gone there with the previous idea, and now it's probably like it's full of life because one of the few options, but luckily enough, it still exists to socialize as public space, but it's full of people sailing, skating, very inclusive, very diverse, and there is a perception that this place belongs back to the city. And also, I think it's a good story around financial management and economic development. On
Yeah.
the meanwhile, it also became the main innovation district in the city. So we are actually reusing vacant buildings to bring there startups and business incubators and a living lab and all sort of innovative activities.
Mm. I am really interested in the story. So tell me more. You got the call from the mayor, and then what was your responsibility? Tell me what did you do in order to transform this mega failed project to a mega successful project?
Yeah, so I basically come back to Spain a couple of months later. I decided to get 10 days off and yeah, extend my layover in Hong Kong. So I was 10 days in Hong Kong on holidays, like just enjoying the city. And then I went back to Valentina and started working at the waterfront. And my position was kind of I did like in the kind of the hierarchy it was the deputy CEO. So basically I was number 2 in the organization, but that meant not only being responsible for strategy and finance, but also managing the human resources of an organization of around 90 people working there, and so on. So it's not something small, managing 800 berths, so places for boats, 1 million square meters of an area, and so on. So I had to do kind of the operational management of the organization next to rethinking the strategy and also rethinking the organization itself. But that will be a reason for another whole conversation. But there was a lot of work devoted to employees and organizational structure and so on, and trying to involve every stakeholder in the process of rethinking and remaking. But the main job was to think in the strategy, to think what to do with that. So
Yeah.
basically what we did is, okay, we understood that we needed more funding and we needed more uses, and try to compatibilize both, start with small actions, try to visualize change, and align, as I said, the tactic with the strategy. Knew that we wanted to become, in that case, obviously, it came after talking to everyone. So we were 1 year like talking to everyone, university, business people, neighborhood associations, activism, culture actors, and so on. And we ended up saying, okay, we have sailing, which is fantastic. We have to make it more inclusive. We have to become one of the greatest public spaces, not the greatest in town, and we have to reuse the buildings to the economic uses that can add more value long term, but that can create impact short term as well.
Mm.
And that was more or less like the idea. And obviously there was a lot of learning by doing from the beginning, and we try to have fun on the way as well.
Yeah, this is the one of the absolutely most important things, that to enjoy the journey.
Yeah. I was. Yeah, I thought that it's probably I had by that time probably the coolest job in town. It was. I
That's
was really
that's
lucky.
that's so nice. But Ramon, we talk a lot like in this project as well, like active participation, co-creation. It sounds like really big words. How do we do it in a practical way? If I want to develop an area, like what does it mean, active participation, co-creation? Can you break it down for us?
Yeah, it's a very complex issue, and I think there's been a lot of buzzwording around that. And now the thing is, lucky enough, everyone considers that it must be included, but it doesn't mean that it's included well. No, it can be just a box that is like tick and that's it. So, but there are certain things around that are important, and I think it's just one. It's as professional being humble enough to have the curiosity to understand the place, and that means people's desires, dreams, but also ways of living and using and so on. And there is no professional that can have a full initial picture about that, and that means involving the people and understanding them. But a truly co-creation process also I think it's really important to level kind of the play. So I'd say, and I think it's not co-creation. What I'm saying is what's not. So obviously we can define it, no? So it's like the collective construction of an outcome.
Mm.
But what does it mean to do it right? And obviously, like dropping a bunch of different people into a room, that's not co-creation. Listening to everyone is not co-creation, or is not enough to have co-creation. So we really have to channel the energy and the effort of people to certain goals, being humble enough to actually learn and to bring what they are doing to actual changes. Because if not, it's other thing. It's just consultancy, or it's pure communication, or just simply marketing. No. So which are the good points of that? It's obvious that it's more important to generate the framework for the good stuff to happen, to create it yourself, because you cannot anticipate anything. It's very important to develop, in a broadest possible sense, what is called the right to the city, the right of people to shape their environment. And that means understanding what as well to do it together. And there is also an element of acknowledge that institutions and professionals cannot do everything, cannot anticipate everything. And that's very important and the starting point. When that's acknowledged, it's very important to involve the ones that are going to use the place, that they'll feel it, that it's important to them. And that can be done in a different ways, like from workshoppings to surveys, to do fast stuff together, to place games. Like the methods and methodology are so different. But I'd say it's just those preconditions are necessary. And then like it's very important to level the kind of the stage, to allow everyone's contribution and do something meaningful with the rules of the games clear from the beginning, to avoid frustrations and I don't know, and outcomes that shouldn't be like that. But I insist, it's more, I can say I know what is not co-creation,
Yeah,
and bringing a bunch of people around the table is not co-creation.
I
Doing
understand
everything
it.
together is not co-creation. I think it's very important to consider that.
But do you believe that this is possible to do it even if I have a limited budget as a municipality or as a city? What do you think?
Hmm. And that also that might bring us to a longer discussion. But I think this kind of a limited budget excuse, it's a poor excuse. No, it's a very poor excuse, because sometimes it's used. No, we don't have the power anymore to react because I don't know, the power of the market, it's super strong and so on. And it's very diverse. Also depends on the country. No, the kind of competences that municipalities have or cities have are really different. But still, there is not. I think there is hardly a more powerful figure than a mayor is, just to give you an example, no? So it's just, yeah, it's a beautiful power, I mean, no, it's more, like, it's more kind of a father or a mother than the president of the government is, no? It's supposed to solve and react to close problems. I'm putting this example because I obviously don't believe in individual and super strong leadership. I think it's just has to be something collective. But I'm saying that because we shouldn't underestimate that power. We shouldn't underestimate the power of exemplarity that the public administration has. And even though there are not sometimes not a lot of money, there's still generally a city owns, normally it's one of the biggest companies in one city. It has, I'd say, like a very important communicative asset. So if the municipality does something, it has a strong influence in the media and so on. It still owns some of the most important assets in town, obviously, in terms of buildings and social infrastructure and so on. And normally it has also a monopoly around that zoning codes and permits and so on. So only with that, and next to the all the policies that they are able to do, it is super powerful. So don't trust anyone that says you like it's a budget problem, because obviously they can be, but that I'd say again that it's a poor excuse. And I'd say like talking is generally cheap. Building I don't know, a tunnel or a tram, that's not cheap. but talking is generally cheap. And I'd say like generally, it would be great if we invest more in talking and less team building in bricks, no? And I think there's a general problem of policies around the world. There is an overestimation of the power of infrastructure and buildings, and we don't talk enough about software, about people, dreams, desires, and uses, and about org governance. And what if, I don't know, in the case of La Marina, €1 billion investment without almost any thinking about the long-term uses of that area after Formula One and America's Cup. And there is actually one idea that we have in Placemaking Europe, that we say, what if we invest 10% of the money for infrastructure and public works into placemaking, into doing activities with the community, into understanding, into co-creating, into learning together. And I'm really sure, but that's an intuition now, but I'm really sure that that would eventually save a lot of money long term.
Mm-hmm. So limited budget is just an excuse.
It is sure, it is a bit of an excuse. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying, and I'm not underestimating as well the problems that some cities face in budgetary reasons, but it's not the excuse to do nothing.
Okay, then let's talk about
for do nothing. Sorry, it is only an excuse. That's what I was meaning to say.
Yeah. So okay, many people are working in city administration, listening to Urbanistica, and also part of Placemaking Europe. Tell me how to start. How to start, like, about this co-creation and all these values that should really do it and not have create some excuses.
I think like there are two ways to start, and probably they have to be done together. One is to be honest enough about what they are willing, why, no? So which is the why of doing what, no? So because I think there are a lot of inertia in urban projects as well. So without any deep thinking, no, things keep going, and so understanding is okay. I want to develop that square, for instance, to the example of the train station of an area. Why, and understanding why in a broad sense, not to try to divide the challenge into pieces. And then I say there is no harm in spending time there. So a direct observation, but I mean like leaving the space that is willing to be transformed, that's fundamental. And then listen. So that would be the 3 stars: understanding the why, being there, and listen to the people that is around.
Yes. So do you still work as a chief strategy officer at La Marina de Valencia?
No, not anymore. I left my job on June 15 because I thought that it had to come to an end. So actually my duty to write the strategy and change kind of the trajectory of the place was done already. And I really wanted to focus on the strategic part instead of the managing part, and bring my experience and especially learn from other cities and areas that could apply the same time kind of approach. And actually, despite of the situation, I'm really happy with the move. Not only because I'm having the chance, or one of my duties, to be director at Placemaking Europe, but also because all the other projects I'm involved in now.
Yeah. So now you're one of the directors in this great Placemaking Europe. Tell me about what are your responsibilities, and then we're going to talk about what's going to happen in 2021. So tell me first about your position.
Yeah, so basically, like Placemaking Europe started as a flexible kind of network, very based on passion and very powerful, but now we all thought, like the most active members thought, that it was a moment of professionalize the organization, to consolidate the structure and so on. So the board appointed 2 directors, Charlotte and I. I really love to work with Charlotte after the incredible work that Jeroen especially did as the main initiator of the organization. So basically we are in the moment of professionalizing the organization and making sure that And that's linked what is going to happen in 2021, no? But making sure that we can be sustainable as an organization. And basically and broadly, Charlotte is taking care of network development, so means like fueling the energy and expanding the energy and the impact of the leaders and the people involved in the network. And I'm responsible of business development and the kind of the strategy to the otherwards. So it means communication and being present in the public debate at the same time as building partnerships with different cities and organizations to develop the long term of the institution.
Oh, I'm so happy that we have you two as a directors for the network, because we really need this passion, energy, and love. And so tell me, what's going to happen in 2021?
Yeah, so I think like next to the professionalization of the organization, there are, we are living a very particular moment. I think it doesn't need further explanation.
No.
But I think we realize that it's important that placemaking have a voice in the current debates about what's going to happen after COVID. It is true as well that I'd say that generally didn't learn much after the 2008 crisis, especially on the European perspective, so we cannot commit that mistakes anymore. So we are focusing like particularly on understanding how placemaking and placemakers can be a relevant actor and can help in this transformation and recovery in this particular situation, where obviously common and public space are going to be central, have to be central. And generally, we are like having, and I'm particularly very obsessed on the idea of scaling up the principles of placemaking to citywide or long-term strategy as well, no? So how can we expand the impact of what we do? How do we align it with long-term situations? And basically, yeah, how can we shape together better cities as well long term, no? So with these two ideas, we're working a lot, and I do really think that in this year we will have an important voice in this debate.
But it's like, how to say, it's very big mission, big goals. Th- Who is going to do it? Like, what we as a placemakers and the network can do in order to make this happen.
I think the network is really involved already. You know, there are a bunch of working groups and people. They are working in their different area of interest. For instance, like the kids area is super developed. Please let development is really developed. So we think it's more like our responsibility as directors to channel that energy into growing the impact. But I do think at the same time we can do stuff together, and one of the focus will be to this year, because of the conditions, there would be Placemaking Week Europe, but we will co-organize and together with the municipal, with Barcelona, with the city of Barcelona, an international conference which is going to be hybrid, which is going to be followed from different places around Europe, like creating some kind of communion, but without the privilege of traveling, obviously. Under the title of After COVID City, Public Space for Recovery, to discuss this precisely, which is the role of people at places to shape a better post-COVID world.
I'm
So
looking really,
very, very excited with that.
yeah, same here. So what else is going to happen, or what is on the agenda for 2021? Is there
We
something clear as well?
No, we are just enjoying the path. At the same time, I think we have a clear goal this year to co-organize this conference, and at the same time to keep building and make the network stronger. So that means partnerships with different cities, like the partnership that we have the city of Helsingborg. That means training, that means events. But basically, we'll be working, focusing like on the daily basis, obviously, but consolidating the network of leaders and individual placemakers, expanding the partnership with different cities and organizations, and being present in the debate around the after COVID city, precisely organizing this conference.
Yeah.
That looks very, very exciting.
What do you think, Ramon, the challenges that we're gonna face as placemaker or as a placemaking Europe? What are the challenges you think?
There are many challenges. And do you know like what is beautiful about placemaking Europe is that you probably can go to any city in Europe and you'll have the content of a placemaker that is facing many challenges. And then going back, but that's why I wasn't underestimating, there would be a challenge of funding. There is a big challenge about Main Street, commercial streets, and everything that happens in the ground floor in cities, linked to the terrible economic crisis that probably will happen after that. I think like the idea of the public is challenged at the same time, no? So it will be the way to go out, but at the same time, the challenge is to take advantage of that opportunity. Know what's happening with cities without extractive tourism, and how can we avoid the thing to go back? What's happening with cities that are rediscovering nature, and sending less emissions to the air, to the greenhouse emissions to the air? So the challenge is it's about trying to not lose the opportunity that this terrible situation is showing up for a positive transformation. That will be the main challenge. Next to obviously a lot of professional challenges about, like Placemaking Europe, it's a network of individuals that are working normally in SMEs or in cooperative environments, in the academia. So we also have, I think it is, like one of the parallel challenges as well is to show how placemaking tools are actually useful tools and are a good answer. And they are not the answer, but they are a good answer to that moment. No, so yeah, big challenge, I guess.
Big challenges, yeah. But I think we are great in the networks. The members will be able to pass these challenges as well together.
I hope so. I'm sure. Yeah,
Ramon,
the big asset of Placemaking Europe is the amount of people
yeah,
that is doing great stuff. And that's why it's just the job that Charlotte and I are doing is not that difficult. It's just we just need to channel that energy, which is already there.
I love
We
it.
don't have to create anything with it.
But Ramon, tell me, what is your dream about Placemaking Europe? Like apart from the goals, the challenges. If you just dream freely, what is your dream about Placemaking Europe?
Wow. I'm a short-term dreamer, and at the same time, like I like to think in the large scale. But I'd say it's, I don't know. I think if we get like we want cities to understand the power of it. So I'd say that they'd say, I don't have a dream, I have a mission. No more in kind of Mariana Matsukato way. So obviously, like my dream is like make the network consolidate a professional, blah, 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 and so on. But I think the mission could be like we should get in 2025 at least 20 cities in Europe that have placemaking part of their official budget, and they are applying this 10% rule. So my dream is that placemaking approach, like participatory bottom-up, where the tactic is aligned to the strategy, place-led development, and so on, all set of tools are becoming mainstream in terms of they are part of they are used by different cities around Europe. That would be my mission.
Well, I love it. A really interesting answer.
Thank you.
So Ramon, apart from placemaking, network, and all the jobs you have, if I ask you what is your favorite space, public space, and why? But I see I'm following like your journey, and you're always close to the water.
Yeah.
Tell me, what's the secret?
No, I think like waterfronts are spaces of contestation generally. They are very unique in terms of heritage and building and so on. But what I guess about waterfronts is that they are sometimes the symbol of the best, like the example of the worst and the best. So waterfronts, despite being that unique and that related to the heritage and the memory of a place, are generally developed in a really poor way, copy-pasted from different cities around the world without any account from the context. So you see waterfront with marinas, cruise ship terminal, shopping mall, casino, and maybe a five-star hotel, and that's it. No, they look sadly very similar. So what I saw in waterfronts, it was kind of, on the one hand, the example of what was wrong about urban development, at the same time still being spaces of great opportunities because they have a lot of vacant land and a lot of square meters that can be used differently, and also starting to be like some some of the greatest examples of placemaking development or good urban participatory urban development are actually in waterfronts, no? So I see them as a big space of opportunity. And since I got the possibility of do that job at La Marina, I also became a board member of the International Network of Port Cities, and I've been really involved in that because I think they work. Yeah, they actually they kind of have all the problems and challenges and opportunities that we are talking. And I'm generally particularly really attracted by kind of this industrial areas that they're not generally like I'm attracted by large scale, not overly designed areas, no? Those places that still allow for different flexible things to happen. And yeah, and that's probably the reason. And then next to that, like I'm really interested about like this overall discussion about the economic function about of harbors and ports, about logistics, globalization, and so on. But basically, that's also linked to a debate around the role of infrastructure. And basically, we have to change our minds. I think too many times, big infrastructure, airports, ports, and so on, have been designed for the purpose of serving themselves and not serving the community and the cities where they were based. And it's important to change. And also linked about the placemaking obsession that I'm very part of that, to talk more about software and org, like people and organization, and less about infrastructure. And I do think that the way out of this new crisis will be more investment in people, less investment in buildings.
I also agree with you that we really need to rethink the relationship between like what we build and the people and so on. It's going to be interesting to follow up the story of cities and if we're really going to change or keep doing what we used to do.
I hope so. I hope so. But it's very important, yeah. I don't know. It's just we have to create the conditions for the places to be improved with things that we cannot predict. They have to be adaptable enough. And the problem with monofunctional infrastructure, with overly designing things, that these places, and they said Richard Sennett and Paulo Centra in their last book, Designing Disorder, they say that the terrible mistakes is when places cannot evolve, cannot evolve, can only degrade. And if you think about the fanciest building for tourism purpose or the fanciest airport terminal, that cannot evolve. That can only degrade. The best that you can do is to maintain that. But what happened, like with this idea of Jane Jacobs, that new ideas need old buildings? There are certain areas that allow evolving, allow the change of usage. They can be home of things that, as I said, we cannot anticipate now. And I think we should focus in design and create the conditions to this to happen, this to happen.
Yeah. Really, really great message. So I'm also interested to know more about your hobbies because you mentioned in the beginning music and so on. Tell us more about you. You have a rock bands, right?
Yeah,
Tell me.
I've been playing music since I was 15 in different bands, really involved in the do it yourself and alternative kind of scene in Valencia. Yeah, I record many records actually. I think 8 maybe.
Wow.
So we have been quite involved. We can find me in Spotify actually. But yeah, always like coming from the punk scene and maybe getting more mild over the years. But
Well,
always playing and what is funny about that is that I understood that this kind of do-it-yourself or punk ethics really had a very important influence on my professional development as well, and I didn't know by that time. But it's even curious that like we were very lucky. My first band, like my first kind of important band, it's just a small band, but we still were lucky enough to record a couple of records when one of the greatest alternative labels in Spain. We were just playing in different festivals around the place, and I remember that we got all paid to record our first record in one of the most amazing studios, and we were there for 3 weeks. I think I was 18 or something like that, or 19. It was so cool.
yeah.
And I wasn't thinking about urbanism at that end. But I realize now that we would actually already writing about that.
Yeah.
No, so the I don't know the term in English, but the first record is called equilater, which is the triangle with the three sides with the same size,
Hmm.
equilateral.
Yeah.
But then we were thinking like it was about equilibrium in the city, and actually there is a song that is called "The Heart of the City," and it was just a reflection of the city that we were inhabiting at the same time. And funny enough, the second record is called "Trial Error." So it was just also a reflection about development that we were using also. I'm using that now. I understand how important it is
Yeah.
profession as well.
Yeah.
And the third record actually is called Lesotho. And Lesotho, it's a country inside South Africa, which is totally surrounded by South Africa, no? And
Mm.
it's a reflection of creating your own place in another place somehow. And it's really geographical, no? And then after that, like I stopped playing for a while, and then I found the geographies. Both bands we sang in Catalan, which is my mother tongue,
Mm.
and geographies was already dealing with urban issues, no? So the last EP that we record, it's called actually the name of the EP is Tourism, and it's kind of an ironic reflections about belonging basically, and how insane is to take a cruise ship and so on. So it's not that yeah, I realized, and it was not something really conscious, but I realized that it is connected with my
Yeah. Yeah. Will we hear a band about placemaking?
I think it's already geography is quite a place making band already. But then
Awesome.
also it is good because I've been here and there, no, like let me go back to that, because like music has been very important, but in a certain moment I was a bit distant to it. But also in the placemaking process of developing La Marina Valencia, music was so important. So
Hmm.
it was very very important to organize live music, to bring local bands, to also bring local neighborhood orchestras, and that was one of the key elements of the success. So also it was a privilege to see music as well from the industry point of view, and how
Yeah.
powerful it is as a tool for urban transformation.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, Ramon, it was really great to talk to you. Very interesting journey, and I think usually I say to like when we talk in a long and have many stories, I say we need a whole season to talk about the different topics. And I feel it now with you. We need the whole season to talk about the different topics. But I would love that we finish this episode by you giving three takeaway messages to all the listeners that listen to Urbanistica podcast and especially the Placemaking Europe network.
I'd say, like, yeah, for individuals, I think there is one learning. So don't be shy and talk and write and call anywhere that you want to talk. So that's important. So the power and fun of sharing. The second element that I'd say is uh, the importance of also, like, yeah, it's just being humble enough to don't come to a place with all your previous stuff, not be humble enough to learn, but also brave enough to bring your tools, no? So this combination of professional qualities and humility and empathy are crucial, no, in our profession. So I'd say, like, yeah, more sharing, more listening, more empathy, but also be belief in what we are doing and the tools that we are playing. That will be my second message. And the third message, what I really believe, is how we cannot imagine yet how important it is that we understand that public space will be central and must to be central in this post-COVID moment. So I really hope that we as placemakers can raise our voice in this international, global, national, and local debate.
Yeah, I hope so as well. And I would love that you ask us one question to reflect. When we listen to your episode, then this question, we will leave the episode with this question. So what will be the question for us?
Yeah, I like I I just suggest, maybe it's a suggestion, but a couple of questions. No, the first, like, reflect on your city and think about when the infrastructure wasn't enough. No, so think about this kind of project, this big project in the city, and try to assess it. So think about, okay, I have like this area development or this innovation district, and try to think about how this big development could serve as well the closer area and the city itself. No, how can we use infrastructure to help human beings, to help the users? Because what I like to make people think, and also that opens a new a new way of debate, but I do think that one of the main assets of placemaking is making compatible international, like institutional economic centrality with social proximity. So the places of power, representation, and economic development should and can be at the same time interesting places for daily and normal activities. No,
Mm,
so what I think is, like, think about the place in your city with the biggest amount of money investment and do a critical assessment about that.
mm,
And then at the same time, think about a place that you enjoy to be there every day. And maybe it's not the place where you bring a tourist, but the one maybe because of the sandwich or because you buy flowers, and try to bridge both in your head.
mm.
Imagine your favorite bakery in the middle of the, I don't know, the innovation district of the cruise
Yeah.
terminal in your city, and think about the tools to bridge your favorite small daily place with the biggest development in your city, and see
Yeah.
what happens.
That's so lovely. I will do that. This is very, very interesting. So thank you so much for the questions. And I want one hashtag from you to describe this episode. What will be your hashtag?
I'd say, like, even though we talk about a lot of things, like, my hashtag for today would be placemaking for recovery.
Nice, nice. So thank you so much, Ramon, and hopefully see you again in coming episode. And I wish you all the good luck with the projects you do and with everything you're gonna do.
Thank you so much, and good luck to you too. And I hope we could have a conversation as well around after COVID City when we do the event in Barcelona.
Yeah, thank you.
Ciao, ciao.